We talked about this with Adler on Monday. Like, what does he read into it? And he doesn't think that it has anything to do with anything that Poilievre is doing. I think it's due to factors outside of his control. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle there. I don't know. There has been kind of a subtle or not so subtle rebrand of the conservative leader, which, every party does it, or many parties do it. There's nothing unusual about it. But it's always interesting to watch, like, gone are the glasses, gone are the... You looked at Poilievre, he was one of the politicians, I would say... He keeps it... He kept it tight. Like, he always had the tie tight. He was always very clean shaven. His hair had like Brill cream in it. Like, he was like, that was his kind of like Mad Men 1950s.
If anybody knows where he's getting his Brill cream, please email me.
I've seen it for sale at some vintage shops. But I don't know. Like, I'm curious to know if that, and my interpretation of what they're doing is softening him up a little bit.
This is actually a very interesting trend you're seeing across a lot of the Western world, is that you're seeing women are going really far left. Men are going real right-wing. And I don't think anything like this has ever happened before, in which you've seen such a gender divide in which parties we support. So that's part of it, yeah, because whenever polling came out about Poilievre, it was like, oh, yeah, he's going to clinch this just based on young men. Men generally, men are fine with Poilievre. But women, it was like, a 20-point gap. He's making more public appearances. Without the glasses and showing off his good physique after he entered the House of Commons. And he was particularly young when he entered the House of Commons. Yeah. Was about his weird workout routine where he had a bunch of like tractor tires in his backyard and he would like fight tractor tires for an hour a day. Oh, there he is!
Johnny with the photo poll for our YouTube audience. I want to ask you about your tweet. It's not normal that Jordan Peterson can become a thought guru overnight, or that some random country song, I'm assuming you're talking about Jason Aldean, can overwhelm the charts in a weekend. Both, you write, are signs of a mainstream media environment that isn't even attempting to serve the zeitgeist. You go on to say, not even the Elvis-hating parents of the 50s were quite as angry and baffled by the emergence of a cultural phenomenon they hadn't personally approved and vetted.
That you've had all these like weird overnight wild successes, whether it's movies or music or just Jordan Peterson. It's really weird that, Jordan Peterson just like 7 years ago, he was just some guy at the U of T you could just call and he would pick up his own phone. And now he's like selling out stadiums and, going on weird adventures. And he's basically become this like, demi-messiah. It's entirely chalked up to the fact that, whether it's Hollywood or whether it's the mainstream media, there is just an increasing share of the population that is just not being served by their entertainment media, by their thought leaders, etc. When I look at polls, I can't think of a single Canadian institution that is more conservative now than it was 5 years ago. One trend that's fascinated me in the last couple of years is you're seeing young people, so people under 30, plurality supporting the Conservative Party of Canada and starting to back some, pretty conservative ideas. People generally are getting more conservatives. This just is not being reflected in our institutions and in our media. So I think what you're seeing is when people just get a slight glimpse of something that isn't from the mainstream, like Jordan Peterson, he achieves just absolutely outsized quantities of success.
A psychology prof at the University of Toronto, those numbers are disproportionate to what you would expect. And then you look internationally and like Joe Rogan's bringing Jordan Peterson on his podcast.
Yeah.
It's one thing if Peterson gets Rogan on his, it's another to be invited on the biggest podcast in the world.
Joe Rogan's another example. Joe Rogan was the guy from Fear Factor and News Radio. When I was in Los Angeles 10 years ago, I went to a comedy open mic and he was like there testing out new material and people knew who he was, but he wasn't the king of all media. The 1950s example, when you think of just like you have a Western world that is just so starved for anything that's not just Perry Como music. And then suddenly just, all these songs start coming out, rock and roll, that aren't tremendously, edgy by today's standards, but they just kind of sweep over people because people are so starved for something different. Like, a normal country song comes out that's complaining about rich people. Pretty standard type country song. It just sort of overtakes the charts. I think it's indicative of somebody at the top kind of has their foot on the throat of things, and we're not having an organic flourishing of what people want. And that's why you're having these weird sort of eruptions.